Right now, across the UK, there are SUVs sitting on dealer lots and driveways that cost more than most people's yearly salary when new, and you can buy them today for less than a second-hand washing machine. I'm not exaggerating. By the end of this video, you'll see the exact numbers, and honestly, some of these had me questioning if the listing was a typo. But before we get into it, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is all about finding the cars nobody's talking about, the ones dealers don't want you to know exist. And trust me, you don't want to miss the next one. Alright, let's get into it. Here's the thing about SUVs in the UK right now. Depreciation on certain models is brutal. We're talking cars that lost 80–90% of their value in under a decade. Nobody wants them. Insurance is high, fuel economy is rough, and parts can be pricey. But if you know where to look, that same reputation that scares everyone else off is exactly what makes these into absurd bargains. These weren't cheap cars to begin with. Every single one of them was a genuine flagship, a car people saved for years to afford. And now they're sitting there, ignored, while buyers chase brand new hatchbacks on finance deals that'll cost them more over 5 years than some of these SUVs cost outright today. We ranked these from cheap to, wait, how is this legal cheap? Number 10 is already going to surprise you, so let's start there. Number 10, the Land Rover Discovery 3. When this came out, it started at over $35,000. Full-time four-wheel drive, 7 seats, proper off-road capability, and an interior that still looks premium today. Now, you'll find high-mileage examples for around $2,500 to $3,500. Why so cheap? Reputation. Land Rover's reliability record, scared off the used market hard, and running costs can bite. Air suspension repairs aren't cheap. But if you find one that's been maintained, with the air suspension converted to coilover, you're getting a genuinely capable, comfortable SUV for the price of a decent laptop. And here's something most buyers don't realize. The Discovery 3 shares a huge amount of its running gear with the Range Rover Sport from the same era, which means specialist knowledge is widely available, and independent garages across the UK know these engines inside out. That alone makes ownership far less scary than people assume. Number 9, and this one still catches people off guard. The BMW X5 first-generation facelift, the E70. New, this thing was $45,000 to $55,000 depending on spec. A proper premium SUV, straight-six diesel engines that can run forever if looked after. Today, diesel examples with 100,000-plus miles are sitting at $3,000 to $4,500. That's a car that used to be a status symbol for city bankers, now costing less than a second-hand motorbike. The catch? Timing chain issues on some engines, and it drinks fuel if you're not gentle with it. But mechanically sorted, it's an unbelievable amount of car for the money. The interior quality on these still holds up remarkably well too. Leather that's aged properly. Dashboards that haven't fallen apart the way some rivals from the same period have. If you find one with full service history and the timing chain already addressed, you're essentially buying a decade-old flagship for pocket change. Number 8, the original Volvo XC90. This was one of the safest SUVs money could buy when new, over $40,000 for a well-spec'd D5. And here's the thing. Volvo build quality from this generation is genuinely excellent. Interiors barely fall apart. Right now, you can pick up a high-mileage D5 for $2,000 to $3,000. 7 seats, a reputation for going past 250,000 miles without drama, and it's one of the few cars on this list where the risk of buying cheap is actually pretty low. Volvo over-engineered this generation of XC90, and it shows. Timing belts, if changed on schedule, rarely cause drama, and the diesel engine was shared across half of Volvo's range for years, so parts are everywhere and cheap. If you're nervous about buying an old luxury SUV for the first time, this is genuinely one of the safest ways into this list. Number 7. The Mercedes M-Class, W164 generation. When new, upwards of $50,000 for a well-optioned model. 3-pointed star, proper luxury interior, air suspension, the works. Now sitting at 2,800 to 4,000 in the UK. This is one where you genuinely need to know what you're buying. Air suspension faults and rust in certain areas are common gremlins, but sorted examples are out there, and for the badge and the presence you're getting, the price is almost embarrassing. Mercedes buyers from this era tended to look after their cars properly too. So full history examples aren't as rare as you'd think. You just need to be patient and willing to walk away from anything without paperwork. Number 6, and this one's a genuine sleeper, the Jeep Grand Cherokee WK2 generation. New, around $35,000 to $45,000 for the diesel overland trim. Massive presence, genuinely comfortable, real off-road ability with the Quadra drive system. UK buyers largely ignored it because of Jeep's patchy reputation here for parts and dealer support. That's your gain. Prices sit around $4,000 to $6,000 for well-kept examples with under 100,000 miles. For that size of SUV, that's remarkable value. This is a car that's massively popular and well understood in the US, which means online communities, parts availability through import specialists, and diagnostic knowledge are all far better than most people expect for a rare brand in the UK. Number 5, the original Audi Q7. This was a genuinely huge deal when it launched, prices starting around $45,000 and climbing well past $60,000 for the V8 TDI. Quattro all-wheel drive, 3 rows, an interior that felt like nothing else on the road at the time. Now, diesel V6 models with high mileage are down to $3,500 to $5,000. It's heavy, it's thirsty, and DPF issues are a known risk. But if you want to feel like you're driving something genuinely premium without spending premium money, this is one of the biggest drops on the whole list. The cabin on these still feels special more than a decade on. Soft-touch materials throughout, a driving position that makes you forget how old the car actually is. Just budget for tires, because a car this heavy chews through them faster than you'd expect. Number 4, and this is where things start getting genuinely mad, the first-generation Range Rover Sport. New, this was a $50,000 to $70,000 car. The Range Rover badge, sports handling, proper road presence. You'll now find TDV6 diesel models for $3,500 to $5,500. That's a car that used to be parked outside 5-star hotels, now costing about the same as a decent second-hand motorbike. Running costs and air suspension are the usual Land Rover gotchas. But the depreciation on this one is honestly staggering. What's wild is how well these still drive. The sport-tuned suspension and lower ride height, compared to a standard Range Rover, mean it still feels genuinely engaging on a B-road, which is not something you can say about most SUVs from this era, cheap or otherwise. Number 3. A Porsche. Yes, really. The first-generation Cayenne launched north of $45,000, and the V8 models went well past $60,000. This was, and still is, a genuinely quick, genuinely capable SUV with a Porsche badge on the bonnet. Right now, high-mileage V6 examples are selling in the UK for $4,000 to $6,000. That is not a typo. The reason it's this cheap is maintenance cost. These need specialist care, and it isn't cheap when things go wrong. But for the badge alone, this is one of the most jaw-dropping entries on this entire list. Bore scoring on the V8 engines is the big thing to check before buying. And coolant pipe failures are a known issue too. But the V6 models sidestep most of that drama while still giving you genuine Porsche driving dynamics for a price that sounds made up. Number 2, the full-size Range Rover L322 generation. This was a $70,000 to $90,000 car when new, depending on spec. Full luxury, full off-road ability, the actual flagship of British motoring. Today, TDV8 diesel models with high mileage sit around $4,500 to $7,000. Let that sink in. A car that used to cost as much as a house deposit is now within reach of almost anyone. Yes, electrical gremlins are a known issue on this generation. But if you find a well-documented one, you're driving one of the most prestigious SUVs ever made for pocket change. This was the car that royalty, footballers and business owners were driving less than 15 years ago, and now it's genuinely achievable on a modest budget, provided you go in with your eyes open and get an independent inspection before handing over any money. And number 1, the biggest drop on this entire list, the Mercedes GL Class. When new, this thing started around $55,000, and top-spec models pushed past $75,000. A full-size, 3-row luxury SUV built to rival the Range Rover. Right now in the UK, you can find these for as little as $3,500 to $5,000. A car that once cost more than most people's houses used to cost sitting on used car lots for less than a decent second-hand motorbike. If you want the single biggest, basically free SUV bargain in the UK today, this is it. 7 full-size seats, air suspension, a cabin that still feels like a proper flagship, and a price tag that makes almost every new hatchback on the market look like a bad financial decision by comparison. So there you have it, 10 SUVs that used to cost a fortune, now sitting at prices that honestly feel like a mistake. If you buy any of these, get a proper inspection done first. Cheap doesn't always mean easy, but it does mean opportunity if you do it right. Budget a bit extra for a pre-purchase check from a specialist, because on cars like these, that one inspection can be the difference between an unbelievable bargain and an expensive lesson. If you enjoyed this, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments which one of these you'd actually buy. See you in the next one.